Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Colony Drop, your favorite Gundam podcast. My name is Isaac.
And my name is Brian, and this is a podcast where we talk about anything and everything related to the Mobile Suit Gundam franchise. From the anime, to the movies, to the music, to the models, to the food, to the clothes, you name it, we do it all, Isaac.
That's absolutely right. And today, just in time for the holiday season, we have a very special series we're going to discuss. This series... It's got a special place in my heart. I think I speak for Brian when it says it's got a special place in his heart also. Today we're going to be talking about which series, Brian?
Mobile Suit Gundam 0080, War in the Pocket.
When we discussed our plan to watch it, I sighed. When I was starting each episode, especially the first episode, I sighed. And when the series ended, I sighed. And it kind of bummed me out for the whole day. But you know what? That's kind of what I feel like it was built to do.
Oh, absolutely. I mean,
yeah.
What better holiday tradition is there, Isaac, than watching War in the Pocket? Possibly one of the most tragic Gundam stories ever, at least in anime form.
The punch in the stomach out of Gundam series. And it's really, I mean, this deserves the phrase mini-series because it's only 6 episodes.
Yeah, I was trying to think like, because you might argue that there are other series that have maybe more tragic elements to them, but I don't think there's another series that does it in quite as short of a time frame as this one. The other ones that I can think of that are maybe more tragic are like 50 episodes. This one's 6.
Yeah, and they did it very well. It's a fully contained story and almost like a really good side story. It can almost be, I wouldn't say ignored, but the events unfolding weren't critical to what happened in the main 1 Year War, to the main storyline in 0079.
Right, yeah, totally. Shall I give the particulars, Isaac, before we dive in here?
Do it, Brian, do it.
All right, so 0080 War in the Pocket is a 6-episode OVA series. It was released from March 1989 through August of 1989. As far as I'm aware, Isaac, the only way to watch this right now is on Blu-ray. I don't think it's available on any streaming network, and while in the past it has been on Gundam Info, which is the official YouTube channel for Gundam, I don't think it's on there right now. But it could come back in the future.
Yeah, or if you're adventurous, maybe you can, look around. there might be different places you can find it.
Yes, as always, I only present the official sources, and Isaac always reminds you that there are less scrupulous ways to watch your show.
You never know. You gotta look around.
All right, so here is the log line, Isaac, from the Gundam the Official Guide, one of our favorite books. In the last weeks of the 1 Year War, a team of Zeon commandos undertakes a desperate mission to destroy a prototype Gundam. Their pursuit brings them to a neutral space colony previously untouched by the war. Here, a small boy who is fascinated by weapons and war gets a chance to experience it firsthand and finds it very different from his heroic fantasies. That's pretty spot on, Isaac, I think.
Yeah, that leaves a lot unsaid, but that's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
It was, oh boy, I'm going to say it's the Romeo and Juliet of Gundam.
Well, that's fair.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people, they might roll their eyes hearing that, and the whole meme of Romeo and Juliet, like how they fell in love, by looking at each other for 15 seconds. But if you kind of boil it down to just the whole tragedy of young people on opposite sides of a conflict, falling in love and then sadly dying, or at least one of them. It's very much the same tragedy. The whole series is really just a spotlight on the tragedy of war and how poor Alfred had to watch this and witness this. And then, of course, the loss of just so many lives for nothing, really.
It's interesting you bring up Romeo and Juliet because now I think about it. When you first said that, I was like, oh, that makes sense because of the ending. But then I was like, oh, but 8th MS Team is also a bit Romeo and Juliet. And then I was like, oh, wait, 0083 also has some Romeo and Juliet in it. What's with that? All 3 of our 1 Year War-ish side stories have opposite ends of the war falling in love. I guess that's just is that a Gundam trope?
I think it's very much almost a human trope, almost, right? Like a boy meets girl. Or man meets woman in this case.
Or girl meets boy. How dare you, Isaac?
Oh, excuse me. I apologize. But if it's in a time of war, oh man, then the consequences and the results at the end will be tragic and devastating.
Yeah. So a few background facts, Isaac, before we get into the discussion. So 1989. That means this is the first OVA for Gundam.
Wow.
And it was the first time that anyone other than The Godfather, Tomino, directed a Gundam series, and the director of the series is Fumihiko Takayama, who also directed several episodes of Macross, it looks like, so you're in good hands there. But so this is kind of a big deal, Isaac. You know, this was released 1 year after Char's Counterattack to commemorate Gundam's 10th anniversary. And when you think about it that way, it's kind of nuts that all of that sort of main canon stuff that we think about for Gundam, and by that I mean, you know, the original series, Zeta, Double Zeta, and Char's Counterattack all came out with a 10-year period. And to put that in perspective, Unicorn is now older than 10 years. Unicorn started in 2010.
I feel old.
Yes, well, you were supposed to take other things away from it, but yes, you can also take away that you are in fact old.
Yeah, this came out 10 years after the original series, but animation-wise, it looks amazing. Like, the detail that they put into the designs, the ships, it rivals 0083, if not surpasses it in some scenes.
It looks good in a lot of scenes. I think in some scenes it looks a little aged. Feel like they put a lot of effort into the action scenes, maybe a little less effort into the non-action stuff. But it does look really good, especially when you compare it to the original series for sure.
Maybe they didn't really know which way this was going to go when they were finally done with it. They got a home run, as far as I'm concerned. But that might be why they decided on having a story where the events that unfold, the repercussions had no effect on the 1 year war, really.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're going to test out the waters and do something different, it makes sense to do it in a standalone, shorter story, right, to see if it works. You don't want to hand the keys to the kingdom to someone else besides the creator and then say, go ahead, do your 50 episodes and we'll see what happens. I mean, that's a big investment, right? So it makes sense to do a smaller thing first. And I'm glad it worked, Isaac, because if it didn't work, then maybe we wouldn't have gotten things like 0083 or 8th MS Team.
Yeah, definitely. Or they would have, I don't know, closed the book on the UC and said, you know what, Wing is doing great. Let's double down on After Colony.
Yeah. So again, Isaac, this is only 6 episodes. It was fairly easy to write a very brief summary. So here we go. Ready?
Do it. Ready.
So at a high level, this is what happens, everybody, to refresh your memory if you haven't seen the show. If you haven't seen the show, this is going to end in a very big spoiler. So I encourage you to go watch the show because it's only 6 episodes. All right, so Zeon finds out that the Federation is building a new type use Gundam. They send in one of their special forces teams called the Cyclops team to destroy this, what they think is the Gundam, before it gets to space. Right now it's being held at the Federation's Arctic base. Cyclops team fails. The Gundam is sent, or at least the container is sent to space, and one of the Cyclops members dies. The Federation takes the new Gundam to a colony called Libo in Side 6, which is a neutral side in the 1 year war. We don't hear about this a lot, Isaac. You can read about it in the lore, but we tend not to see it too much, I feel like, or people don't talk about it as much. But Side 6 is called the Riyadh, or the Riyadh Republic. In this show, they called it the Riyadh. I feel like they put a D on the end of it, but even though I don't think it has a D in the official spelling, but... So it's sort of this extra republic that's neutral, and it ends up getting folded into the Federation after the 1 year war. But for right now, in the 1 year war, it was separate. So the Federation ships off their container there, the Gundam there, to further develop it. Cyclops team figures this out. They go there too, and they are assigned a new rookie recruit to replace the person they lost at the Arctic base. His name is Bernie. He's going to be our, I believe they call them deuteragonists, Isaac.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Yeah, so Bernie is now on the Cyclops team. However, Libo is also home to an 11-year-old boy named Alfred Izaruha, who is in love with the idea of war and being a soldier in sort of the most naive 11-year-old way. He thinks it's very cool, very fun, just enamored by all things war.
Draws pictures. He's got the whole little war video game. You know, in class he does sketches of Zaku's and stuff like that. Yeah, more on that later.
The Cyclops team, people infiltrate the colony, and Bernie's in a Zaku, and he gets shot down. And Alfred happens upon Bernie when he gets shot down, so they sort of befriend each other. And they run into each other shortly thereafter, and Alfred keeps following Bernie because he thinks it's really cool that Bernie's a soldier. And he gradually helps Bernie and the Cyclops team locate the new Gundam. And the Cyclops team then assault the factory where it's being held with their mobile suit known as the campfire. Probably one of the best 1 year war designs of all time.
Yeah.
The Federation tries to stop them, but the campfire blows the Federation team away, and then they're only stopped by Al's childhood friend and now acquaintance of Bernie, Christina McKenzie, who is, unbeknownst to Al or Bernie at the time, the test pilot of the new Gundam, which is codenamed the Alex, or referred to as the Alex. The Cyclops team dies in this strike, except for Bernie. The Cyclops team's Zeon handler in Lebo informs Bernie that if the Gundam isn't destroyed by Christmas night, a fleet will launch from Granada and nuke the entire colony to ensure that the Gundam is destroyed. Bernie and Al set a trap for the Gundam to try and save the colony, but right before Bernie starts the trap, the Zeon fleet with the nukes from Granada are intercepted and surrender. But Al cannot inform Bernie in time, so Bernie starts the assault on the Gundam. And as a result, Bernie fights Kris unknowingly. While Bernie inflicts significant damage on the Gundam, Kris's Gundam prevails, and she takes Bernie's life in front of Al, as he's screaming for them to stop. And then he just sits there crying, traumatized. As Isaac said, it's a bit of a downer, and it will ruin your day.
Don't watch it on Christmas. Yeah.
Definitely, again, like you said, one of the best self-contained stories I think we have, especially at that length.
It's a dense series. There's not a lot of wasted time in episodes. Maybe episode 5 could have been trimmed down in some scenes. But other than that, a lot happens in a very brief amount of time. And for that reason, I wrote a lot of notes, which is something I don't normally do. But it was such as tragic as it is, it was such a great story, pretty powerful.
All right, Isaac, let's get into it. Well, shall we just go from start to finish? Or I don't know how your notes are organized.
Yeah, but that's exactly how my notes are organized. All right. How about you? And then I have like some afterthoughts, but you know.
Yeah, mostly start to finish. So if we start at the beginning, episode 1, this was the battle at the Arctic base.
Right, yeah.
Here, Isaac, we got to see the Hygogg, which was probably the best amphibious Zeon suit there is.
Yeah, and I'm not big on blue, but I even like the color.
Yeah.
The way they modified it with its kind of squiggly tentacle arms, that was great.
I agree. That design is fantastic. It's, in general, this series has great designs from pretty much top to bottom. I can't think of a bad one, right?
It moves so fast, it needed its arm to like grab the ground and brake. Did you notice
I did. It seemed very reckless, but it definitely worked.
Yeah, or I mean, well, I guess they're kind of new, right? Because there's not a ton of Hygogg.
No,
so
yeah.
Maybe he was going faster than he clearly wanted to.
He had no idea. He's just out of control, yeah.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed the Hygogg. I think the Cyclops team took in 3 Hygoggs, right? And the guy who died was named Andy. He was in a Hygogg, unfortunately, but...
Yeah.
The other ones took care of business, Isaac. The gyms in this battle are the Cold District type, which I think are some of the best-looking gyms. But they still got their ass handed to them. I mean...
They acted like gyms.
Yeah. There's a scene in this show, right, where Alfred's friends are giving him crap because he likes Zeon, and he's, because Bernie's Zeon. He's become enamored with Bernie and his team. And they're like, no, the Federation's way better. And Alfred's like, no, the Zakus they're way better. The gyms are so wimpy. And I was like, first, Al sounds like little Isaac. And then 2, he's right. I mean, this series has such a wide variety of gyms in it. But in every instance, they get their ass kicked.
Yeah, and I wrote down this might be the only instance of a gym shooting itself, because I forgot who was the one that did it. It might have been Steiner. But, the gym that's defending the base, its arm gets shot off at like the forearm, but like the hand is still pulling down on the trigger, and the arm dislocates, and the gun spins back around and shoots up the cockpit.
Yeah. And it was shooting itself for a long time, too. It wasn't like one shot. It was like 4 or 5. Taka, 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 taka. I was like, wow, you really screwed the pooch there, guy.
Oh, man. Did you notice that each member of the Cyclops team has like a little pre-battle ritual?
Well, okay, so Mikhail or Misha, he was the drinker, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
The drinker.
Well, I mean, he would drink. Was that his ritual?
The functional alcoholic.
Yeah. Garcia, was it his bandana that he would put on?
Right, yeah.
Yeah. What does Steiner do?
He lights up a cigarette. He's like a chain smoker.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And then Strauss was like combing his hair.
Oh, a lot of good that did him, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, he probably looked great when Steiner took him out of the cockpit.
Oh, man.
To the Federation's credit, though, they like fought to the end to protect that shuttle. Like there was even a gym where like the booster rockets set off that I assume died.
Right, so that was the one that killed Andy, or Strauss, I guess is his last name. That was the one that killed him. And yeah, I had the same thought. Like, the smoke and blast overtook it, so I assumed that, at the very least, that gym, maybe the pilot didn't die, but the gym itself has to not be functional after the battle, given how close it was.
If he was smart, once that shuttle was in the air and it was clear the base was destroyed, he should have just, laid low until they leave back to the submarine.
Yeah.
But the Federation base, they were heroes. They made sure the Alex got where it needed to go.
And you know why? It was because if you remember at the very beginning of the show, Steiner says they're 15 minutes behind schedule. If they had just been on time, I think they would have won.
Yeah, right. Because the shuttle was fully prepped. The only thing they rushed was getting the Alex actually on
the
board.
Container. Yeah.
One of the cargo guys said, I need 10 minutes, and then whoever was still alive at the headquarters of the base said, you have 5.
Yeah. I also really liked this part of the plot, Isaac, because at the time you don't actually know what's on the shuttle. They haven't said that yet. You just know that it's something important and the Cyclops team needs to shoot it down. I mean, it's a Gundam show. You can infer that it's a Gundam. But I like that they didn't just tell us, right? They showed us.
Yeah. The MacGuffin of the plot. Brian, do you think if the Cyclops team was early and they did get the Alex, are we going to just see an Alex in Xeon colors in an alternate timeline? Or would it just have been shipped back in parts to Side 3 and ultimately, while it would have given them some more technology and know-how, it wouldn't have helped the war effort at all?
I'd have to know the date on when they left the Arctic base. Because if it was only like a few days before they got to Lebo, then I don't think it's enough time for them to really do anything with it. Maybe they could have shipped it and used it at Solomon or Baoku. But beyond that, I don't think it would be enough time for them to reverse engineer anything.
Any way you cut it, I think the war was over.
Yeah. In this first episode, Isaac, we also meet Alfred, or Al, playing guns with his friends. He's so innocent. This show, watching it today as an adult, it definitely hits a little harder, seeing, I don't know, violence increase in the world, I'll say.
Yeah, we watched a few wars since we were kids, right?
Yeah.
So we had to go through the wars on terror, I should say, multiple wars. Yeah, you definitely view Alfred as being maybe the only child protagonist in Gundam and purely innocent.
Yeah, he's also not a Gundam pilot, right? He's just sort of a bystander. So
no, the only civilian protagonist almost.
Yeah, especially one of that age too.
Right, yeah. Can we assume, based on the conversation with his friends, which I thought was really interesting, they mentioned that they're having synthetic meat. That's what their burgers were made out of. So I was kind of trying to read between the lines. Maybe you agree with me that the colony government, for their side, was things had gotten hard enough that they're using synthetic meat. So maybe that's probably why they looked the other way and allowed the Alex to come to the colony.
Could be. Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't catch that, but I guess that makes sense. It also could just be what people eat in those days. Maybe it's just cheaper to do that than to actually raise cows or whatever. Yeah,
I think his friends mentioned that, or maybe Al mentioned that regular meat's better, and they've only been having the synthetic meat pretty recently. So
yeah, I mean that makes sense. The war's almost at its end, so it's got to be at its worst for their colony. Poor Al and his friends.
I don't remember ever learning the name of the girl with ponytails, but I like how she sticks up for herself, and she gives the guy that grabs her, the boy that grabs her, she gives him a swift kick to the nuts.
Was it Alcott or Talcott or something, or was that one of the boys?
I don't know, but she's no nonsense. She's like a tattletale too.
She was. She really stuck to her guns. Like sometimes she would tell on Alfred and his friends, and other times she would help him. Like whenever he was crying towards the end, she was like concerned about him. So she was like a real goody two shoes for through and through.
Yeah. She has very rigid morals, so like that'll, depending on what you're doing, that'll work against you, or she'll end up helping you.
Isaac, in episode 1, when the fighting was happening in the colony, we got to see a green dom, which we don't often see, and I understand that this is the colony attack color.
Is that what it's officially called?
Yeah, we saw Rick Dom 2, and yeah, it's called colony attack colors. It's like a dark green on the shoulder and waist armor, and then a light putrid green on the other pieces. I know you love your doms, but I also know you love your Xeon green. How did you react to the green dom?
I specifically wrote, I am not a fan of the green dom. I mean, no, I don't like it at all. And he was a bad shot. He put that Panzerfaust shot straight into the ground. He didn't even. It was a terrible shot. Did you notice that? Just like in 083, the hangar and base security is so poor that a small child was able to get into the hangar bay.
Yes,
and look directly at the shuttle.
Yes, absolutely. Zero security is a continued theme in Gundam. Maybe that's just like how they do it. They're just like, this is too difficult to explain. None of our plots are going to work. We'll just maintain that there's zero security everywhere in this timeline.
Let's be clear. This is for the Federation only, though.
Yeah, that's fair.
We've never seen Zeon have this problem. But he was pretty clever for thinking on his feet. And like, the moment the hangar guy confronted him, he said, "Oh, I'm just looking for the bathroom."
Yeah, no, Al does that quite a bit. He does that in this episode. He does that when he realizes that the Cyclops team is going to kill that cop. He says, "Oh, I lied to you, Mr. Cop, sir. This is my brother, and I haven't seen him in a long time. I'm sorry." And then he does it. He does it again at the end. Remember when Bernie's trying to get the Hygogg out of the shipping thing, and he starts smashing the guy's car and
becomes a violent protester.
Yeah, he pretends his dad is dead, and says, "Give my dad back, you fetty jerks," blah blah. So yeah, he's a really resourceful, quick-thinking 11-year-old. He has terrible grades, but in this he excels.
Did you notice that his mom? This is something only I would notice, but his mom, like the dinner she prepared for him was like a big rectangular serving tray of like stew or something. Okay, she like pulled it directly out of the oven, put it in front of him, and like he started eating.
There you go, kid. In this episode, we also meet Christina. She's Alfred's friend from childhood who moved to Earth, but now she's back, and she says she got a government job, Isaac.
Oh.
She will later say, which I thought was one of the more clever lines of the movie, which I think is in episode, 2, 3, or 4. She says, "Oh, I just do data collection. I don't fight with a gun or anything." And she's not technically lying.
Yeah. I mean, she was a test pilot, they were just doing the simulation and stuff. She wasn't really using a gun. She was right.
Yeah, so I thought that was clever.
Yeah, to her credit, even during the gunfight, she never picks up a weapon. Like, maybe she wasn't trained in it or something, but she knows her best chance of any situation is to just run to the cockpit.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, but she's cool. I like Christina. She was very much like his. I imagine when they were growing up, since there's such an age difference, she was like the surrogate big sister.
Yeah, that's kind of the relationship that I took from it as well. I mean, she seemed very girl next door kind of vibe. That seems like what they were going for. But this one obviously grew up and became very important, successful.
Yeah, and it was clearly a platonic friendship because of like the age difference. So.
Yeah, that might be one of the negatives of this series. If I had to list one, was that there just wasn't enough Christina. But I also just don't think there's enough time. They already used their time very wisely. I don't know how else we would have got more time. Yeah,
we saw enough of her character to get a full 360 analysis of her, and God, Christina's great. Dare I say she was the first canonical female pilot? Well, no. Okay. But she's great. Maybe on the Federation side, actually, now that I think about it. No, that still isn't true. Whatever. Christina's great.
Yeah, I thought she was a good, refreshing character. Definitely wasn't the first female Gundam pilot, but definitely the most main character female Gundam pilot that we've had until Suletta from Witch from Mercury. So
yeah,
there was a ton in obviously the original, Zeta, Double Zeta, but they weren't the title characters. It's this show doesn't really have one title character, so it's hard to say that she was a title character in this show. So she doesn't really count either, but I feel like she was closer than the rest. But I could see people debating that.
Yeah, after the fight with the first attack with the Doms and the Zaku's against a few of the gyms in the colony, for the life of me, I have no idea why the colony government or the Federation, whoever got there first, left the Zaku there but just took the weapons. Like, that made no sense to me. Why would you leave a functioning Zaku just laying there?
Yeah, I mean, they kind of elaborated on that a little bit later on, I think on episode 6. Apparently they did the same thing to the gyms too, because remember he had to salvage parts from the gyms that were also laying around. So maybe they just don't have the resources to go pick them up and move them.
Huh. Okay. So, I think I see what you're saying. So the heavy machinery needed to actually move machines of that size just isn't in the colony because, I mean, why would it be? They're neutral and there's never been battles here, so that stuff just isn't laying around.
Yeah, I mean, they don't have their own mobile suits, remember? Because when later on, when the campfire attacks, the Federation's like, you guys should do it. And so they send out their little, like, exosuits and those just get stomped. So maybe those exosuits aren't enough to pick them up and move them. I mean, What else would you use to move them if you don't have your own mobile suit? It feels like you'd have to cut them up with like blowtorches and then move the pieces or something.
That's true. Yeah.
But you're right. It doesn't sound like a good idea to just leave it there.
Yeah, we hope that pilot doesn't come back. We'll just leave this here.
That's fine.
What could go wrong? Yeah.
Episode 2, Isaac. Just a funny side note here. The episode 2's name is Reflections in a Brown Eye, which is maybe not the best episode title they could have come up with. But this is the one, Isaac, where they get Bernie into the colony, I think, with that transport ship, and they put a body next to him.
No, they didn't put a body. They put a live person next to him, Brian. And then, to keep up the charade, they had some soldiers outside look at the ship. And I mean, they're ready to go before the poor guy even got there, right?
Yes.
And then they sniped into the cockpit.
Good Lord. Right in the head.
Why wouldn't you warn Bernie? Or did Bernie know, but
no,
even if you know, you
Bernie
just can't prepare
know.
yourself for,
Yeah.
Okay.
No, Bernie didn't know. I think because when they put it next to him, they told Bernie it was a body. And then Bernie said something like, "Oh, I guess you had bad luck today too, pal, huh?" And then then they shot him, and Bernie was like, "Oh." I mean, credit to Bernie, he didn't overreact, I guess, but
I mean, well, he was in shock somewhat, yeah. But that was pretty rough. Brilliant though, but rough.
Yes. This is also the episode where we get to see the Gelgoog Jaegers fight, which is maybe the best Gelgoog design. I mean, I know you like your Gelgoog Marine. Do you like the Gelgoog Jaeger more or the Gelgoog Marine more?
No, I like the Marine more, but the Jaeger's pretty cool too. It's just, they put on a heck of a fight.
My understanding, Isaac, is, at least per the wiki, that the Jaeger is slightly better than the Marine, but the Marine is much more cost efficient, so they made more of the Marine.
Probably, yeah. The Jaeger looks like it came out the end of the war. The Gelgoog Marine was probably made way earlier. Jaeger, I assume, is just optimized for space combat rather than whatever special operations the Marines are actually going to be up to.
Yeah, so if you're a Gelgoog fan, you've never seen the Gelgoog Jaeger, it's a pretty cool design. What struck me odd about that design, Isaac, is that the default is red. We don't have a lot of default red suits.
No. But I like that it's not kind of Char's red. It's a bit more of a crimson-y.
Yeah, it's like a deep red, yeah.
So, and its rifle looks cool too.
It does.
Kind of reminded me of Gatto's rifle for a bit, but just more. They were working much more on the miniaturization of it.
Yeah. And this is also where we see the Gym Command space types. I mean, this whole show is just like gym porn, Isaac, because there's so many different gyms here, and they all look really good. There's the Cold District Gym, the Gym Command, which fought inside the colony, and then outside the colony fighting the Jaegers, are the Gym Command space types, which also look great. And then later we're going to get to see the Gym Sniper 2s when the Grey Phantom shows up. Again, though, the Gym space types, I feel like they just didn't cut it against the Gelgoog Jaegers.
No, I mean, they seem to do okay against the Doms and I think the Zaku's, but a Gelgoog's a Gelgoog,
Yeah.
What can you do?
I mean, I know you're not a gym fan, but do any of these gyms strike you as for a gym, that one's pretty cool?
I mean, you know which one it is, Brian. We haven't seen it yet, but it shows up right at the end. It's the Sniper.
Yeah, Gym Sniper 2, okay.
I mean, they didn't do great, but they look. It's the visor, pretty much.
Oh,
let's be honest. That's really all we
clear.
like.
They did abysmal. I don't even think they got a shot off, Isaac.
No, in their defense, though, maybe their training was oriented around fighting Zaku's or Doms. So when this lightning fast thing shows up out of nowhere with beam shotguns and all kinds of special things, and it looks like it can be even more maneuverable than a Dom, I can kind of forgive them for such a poor showing,
Yeah, okay, all right, that's fair. Okay, so in episode 3, this battle we see here is when Kris gets killed in the simulator by a Dom. I was wondering, do you think that's a reference to the novel where Amuro dies by a random Dom pilot?
Huh. I don't know. It could be.
During that scene is, I think, also when they mentioned that the Alex is specifically built for new types and it's meant for a pilot on the white base. So that's your big, lore moment, right?
Oh, yeah. Was that when Christina got out of the cockpit and a guy kind of made a comment to her or something like that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, man. This show, a lot of Christina's scenes, or at least a few of them, have a pretty clear, tone of sexism in it with the way she's talked to.
Oh, absolutely. That guy in particular, for sure.
Yeah. And later on in the scene I'll bring up, but man, yeah. She's pretty elite if she's been part of a secret project and they're developing this top secret powerful Gundam. It's a little shocking to an extent, but then again, maybe I haven't been through any experiences like that, so maybe it's not as shocking as I assume.
I agree. I mean, they wouldn't just choose anyone for this job. I mean, it does seem pretty clear that maybe she doesn't have any real combat experience, but from my understanding, she at least was like, top of her class or something, and like that's why, she was given this assignment. So it's not like she's unskilled. She's just maybe not as experienced.
Yeah, definitely. I bet she earned a rank by the end of the series or something after what she pulled off, though. Yeah.
Yeah. Especially given that she didn't even really use any of the real weapons that the suit has. She didn't use a rifle.
Yeah, she pretty much just used two different types of weapons.
Yeah, she used both arm cannons, one on one day and one on the next, and then the saber. When you think about the Alex, it's always shown with its shield in all the models and stuff, but we don't even see the shield in the show. We don't even see a beam rifle in the show.
No, we don't see any of that. Yeah, where were they?
Probably in a box. Yeah, still packed away.
Hey, going back to the hangar scene though, did you like how good of an actor the captain is, and how he could cry on command?
Oh yeah, that was good.
Arguing over the paperwork, and he was so thankful that the company wouldn't close.
Yeah, apparently his company though is like super dependent on one sale with like one customer, so it didn't seem like his company was going to be doing very well if it was the
late fees will kill them.
Like, oh man, you're teetering there. If one set of overdraft fees are going to kill you.
Yeah. But, times are tough, Brian. There's a war.
That's fair.
Christina's pretty gung-ho. Okay, you remember the scene, right, where Bernie's like trying to get to Alfred, right? And he's like outside his house at night.
Yes.
And Christina knocks him out with a baseball bat. Like, she is pretty gung-ho if, as a young woman, she was willing to grab a baseball bat, run out of her house at night, and attack a man in the darkness. Right?
Yeah, man, she's pretty hardcore. Don't mess with her, Alfred.
I also like how she's told her mom, don't call the police or cancel the call to the police. And then nobody decided to call an ambulance for a man that's clearly been like knocked unconscious.
Yeah, it must have been a pretty serious hit. I wonder if she used a wood bat or a metal bat. I mean, either way, it's not something that you just sleep off. I mean, that's got to hurt.
It looked wood to me, but here's a stinger question, Brian. Would Bernie have done better in the final battle had he not been concussed with a baseball bat days before?
Probably. I mean, I know I would.
I've never had a concussion. You might have had a concussion once, I believe, but I assume it affects your ability to do certain things for at least the next couple of days.
Yeah.
You're not at 100%.
No, yeah, I actually have had a concussion, and put me out of commission for, I think, 2 weeks. So,
wow.
I mean, I'm sure there's, different severities, right, of these things. I don't know where she exactly hit him in the head, but...
I'll put hit by a baseball bat in the head as like a pretty high, level of concussion.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know how many days between this one and the end, but yeah, I would say that it impacted his performance. It would impact my performance, don't you think? I mean, wouldn't it for you?
Yeah, I don't want to pilot anything or have to deal with like planning and strategy or let alone combat and like a mission, like Bernie was not at 100% for the rest of the series.
I think so. After episode 3, that's when they find the Alex, they take the pictures, and they go back to the Cyclops team. In episode 4, Isaac, this has maybe my favorite line of the show, at least from a funny perspective. This is when Mikhail or Misha. So I noticed, Isaac, here, the guy's name who pilots the campfire, his name is Mikhail. Was it Kaminsky, I think? But in the show, they call him Misha, and that's because, if you're not familiar, listeners, he's Russian, obviously, and the way Russian names work is they have a lot of, like, if your name's Peter, they call you Pasha, and if your name's Maria, they call you Masha, and I guess if your name's Mikhail, they call you Misha. There's probably a name for it, but that's just how Russian names work. And so in the show, they actually call him Misha, even though his name's Mikhail. So did you see the scene, Isaac, when he's buying a lot of stuff to, like, cut things and blow things up, and the guy at the counter says, you could cut up a battleship with all this, and Misha says, or colony wall?
Yeah, I remember him saying that, yeah.
like he gives away the plan in the most hilarious way possible. I loved that. Like, he's so proud of it, too.
That might be why later on, like when Bernie's trying to repair his Zaku, he only sends Alfred by himself, if you remember, right? He only sends him to the hardware store alone. He's not taking any more chances.
They've already seen me buy all this stuff. Yeah, I agree. This is also when Misha. I really like the plan here, Isaac, where he's like leaving weapons all over the place. He parks the chain mine truck in one parking lot, and then we find out that they've parked other trucks full of weapons around. The factory that they're about to. So I like that. That's a very well thought out plot by the writer and director. So that I appreciate that. Rather than just the Kemper pulling weapons kind of out of its ass along the way. So.
Yeah, I guess that would make sense too, right? So high attack focus that it dare not hold more weapons than really what it needs to use at a specific moment.
Yeah, and if you read the mecha profile on the Kemper, it says that it's designed to be disassembled and reassembled behind enemy lines, and then also it's meant to discard its weapons as it goes.
Yeah, that's exactly what it did when it was going all over the place and dropping grenade launchers and shotguns left and right. Yeah.
Episode 4, Isaac, this is the Kemper fight. And I know in the past, Isaac, we've made fun of Misha or Mikhail for loading up on the booze. But I guess rewatching the series as a whole, I mean, this was clearly a suicide mission. I mean, the chances of him coming back is very low. And so I guess I don't blame him one bit. What does he say right before he leaves? To victory, life or death?
Yeah. I mean, I would almost invert that on its head, where the team sounded like they thought they were going to do way worse than they did, because the Alex was the last mobile suit standing, to my knowledge, right? Unless a fleet was on the way.
Well, yeah, I just mean in general, he way overperformed, in my opinion. Although he didn't destroy the Alex. He launches in the Kemper, and then the Federation finally moves in, right? Because the colony forces suck, and they can't stop him. So the Gray Phantom, one of our favorite, white-based derivatives, moves in, and they launch this. I think they have two teams: Scarlet Team, and I think the Deep Blue Team is the other one, at least according to the wiki. I only remember them saying Scarlet Team, but
yeah,
it's a team of Jim Sniper 2s and gun cannons, and Misha just shoots them out of the sky like nothing. It was a pathetic performance from the Federation, Isaac. The Jim Sniper 2 is the best Jim from the 1 Year War, as far as I'm aware, unless they've added other things and manga side stories. And they were just picked off out of the sky like nothing with a shotgun. It was pathetic. Terrible.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Was it a Jim Sniper 2 that was hiding under the bridge, trying to ambush the Comfort, only for the Comfort to appear behind it? Or was that just a regular Jim?
I think it was a Sniper 2, but I'd have to rewatch it. There was some coloring errors in this scene, which I think we've talked about before, so it made it difficult to figure that out. But
God, even the gun cannon, it was blown out of the sky before shooting, and the gun cannon is designed for medium range combat. It didn't get off a shot, I think.
No, he just blew these guys away with very limited resource expenditure too. He had a few of those Sturmfaust things. He fired them away. He hit a few with the shotgun rounds. Boom, boom. He did his job all the way. Inside it doesn't go so well because Bernie screws up on the seasoning, or for what time of year it is in Sydney.
Oh God, idiot! Yeah,
that kind of gets him. It basically gets everyone killed, right?
Yeah, of all the places to pick, of the dozens of accent options, he picked the one country that was destroyed by Zeon.
Yes,
not continent that was destroyed by Zeon, actually. But man, what a mess up. He could just go with the regular accent, just say, "Oh, I'm from the colonies," and then people would just kind of be like, "Oh, whatever."
Yeah.
I have no idea why Steiner didn't prep him or something, or everybody get a backstory ready. Oh, God. Bernie really torpedoed it. As much trouble as he had before that part of the mission, that critical failure just, like you said, got everybody killed.
It did, yeah. When you're Steiner, though, and he opens his mouth and does an Australian accent, are you just like, God damn it, here we go? What?
No, because I think he pulled it off convincingly, except for the whole weather part.
He did. The Federation guy came running back later. It wasn't he didn't blow it right away. Remember, he came running back.
So that soldier wasn't holding it in that he knew right away. It was more time had to pass for him to think about something, or he mentioned something to somebody else,
right?
And then he knew that the information was wrong about the weather. Okay.
Exactly. So while things don't go too well for the Cyclops team, Steiner dies, Garcia dies. They don't end up being able to steal or destroy the Alex. So Christina gets in the Alex in all the chaos This is what you're talking about. She ran directly to the cockpit, got in, and was like, see you all later.
Yeah.
You know, Misha wraps the Alex in the chain mine, which has got to be one of the coolest weapons we've seen a mobile suit use.
Yeah.
And honestly, like, Kris and the Federation got lucky here. If the Alex wasn't wearing that Chobham armor, then it would have been destroyed.
Absolutely. Well, that was one of my questions to you. Do you think if they didn't have that armor, it would have been destroyed? So your vote's for yes.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
I'm going to say if not destroyed, then definitely heavily damaged to the point where it was probably done with.
Oh, yeah. I mean, whether it is fully disintegrated or just completely, you know, what's the technical term, foobarred?
I'd even go a step further and say Christina and the Federation got lucky even before the chain mine even appeared, because the Kampfer standing over the hangar where the Gundam Alex is, and then it shoots open, you know, the ceiling of it, and then Christina closes her cockpit with like 1 second to spare. Yeah,
and she speeds away, right? And even after that, before taking the chain mine, she takes 2 or 3 shotgun blasts straight up. I'm not saying that Alex wouldn't have survived the shotgun blast. It probably would have, but it would have taken some decent damage from that as well. It just shrugged him off because it had the armor on.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So what did we learn here? I guess if your suit has a full set of Chobham armor, you store it with the Chobham armor on.
The armor is like an extra life in a video game.
Yeah,
you know, you're really gonna want it on. Like, it'll be the last thing you regret if you don't have it.
It's the super mushroom of the Gundam world.
It's like having like a bunch of extra gold rings if you're Sonic.
So obviously Christina retaliates, you know, with the arm cannon and destroys the campfire, which has light armor to begin with. It's not meant for dueling, I don't think, with heavily armored opponents. So, you know, now Misha's dead because she probably shot him up with, I don't know, 100 rounds or something. There was a little overkill there. So overall, things didn't go too well that episode for the Cyclops team. Bernie's the only one left at this point, Isaac.
Yeah, he's last man standing, and poor Captain, he couldn't even get convinced that Bernie couldn't even convince him that they did take out the Gundam Alex.
Yeah, what does he say? You're a terrible liar, and then he dies.
Yeah,
that's sad.
And then he dies.
Isaac, I was curious to get your thoughts on what happens at the beginning of episode 5. We open with 2 Zeon, commanders, generals, whatever, arguing at Granada. One of them wants to use nuclear weapons, and the other one does not. And the one who wants to use it, basically shoots the other guy. His logic was, well, Side 6 was not a signing member of the Antarctic Treaty, which seems pretty legally flimsy to me if you were to go nuke Side 6.
Yeah, it seemed very much a case of the base commander clearly knew that using the nuke was wrong. I don't know if he knew about the situation with Alex itself, but we're not using nukes. That seems to be across the board something Zeon's agreed to, except for like maybe Makuve on Earth during Odessa. But other than that, we have no other times that Zeon actually used nukes, right? So he was correct, I think, in trying to stop it. But by then, Killing and the 2 other officers by that nuke, they got their orders to take down the Alex no matter what. So that guy got shot.
We also see in this episode, right after that Kris has a pink uniform. I feel like we haven't seen that a lot in newer adaptations, but maybe we have. But here's an instance where the pink uniform is used again, Isaac.
Yeah, but hers looks so cool because it wasn't like the sort of skirt dress thing. It was like a pink pilot jacket,
Yeah,
like an Air Force type jacket. It looked really cool. I thought like somebody could wear something like that today.
Maybe that's what it was supposed to be. Maybe it was just supposed to be an update to that look that keeps the pink coloring but makes it a little more cool, quote unquote. I liked it. I thought it was cool.
Yeah, but I guess the color got the wrong reaction because she wears it and walks up to Detective McSexist, who seemed to be more or less accusing her of being a spy, I thought, almost, or...
Yeah, I mean, he was kind of like making it seem like she was the one responsible for the Federation. To his credit, he was right. The Federation was clearly there, secretly developing this mobile suit under the guise of neutrality, which seems to be their MO, given what we saw in the original series, right? They also did that at Side 7. That's where they took the RX-78 too. But yeah, you're right. He was unfairly placing all the blame on her when she just works here, right? She's not in charge of like where they do it or where they take it.
Yeah, it also seemed a little inappropriate to be talking to her like at least alone. There should have been I don't know. I almost feel like, why is this happening? The base commander or somebody should be talking to the detectives, like somebody multiple ranks above her.
Exactly. He should be talking to the base commander or even the captain of the Grey Phantom. I mean, that ship's in your colony. They gave us a body count here, Isaac. During that battle, 246 people died and over 500 people were wounded. I believe that. There was a lot of collateral damage, and this is also maybe one of the hardest scenes in the show where Al stops by a damaged building as they pull out a dead kid from it.
Yeah, that kind of was one of his first traumatic moments, I feel like. That was pretty bad, but that death count seems both high and low, depending on how you look at it. But I'll agree to it, yeah. It probably got higher as time went on. I imagine some people wounded aren't going to make it.
Right after this, we see, Bernie buries Steiner. And that's when, he calls him a terrible liar, and he dies. I thought one of the best characters, Isaac, was I don't know the guy's name. I don't feel like they mentioned it, but it was basically their handler, the guy who runs the bar. Do you know his name? Does he have a name?
I forgot his name, but it was mentioned.
This is where he tells Bernie to escape as soon as possible because Zeon is going to use the nukes, if the Gundam is not destroyed by Christmas night. Pretty ominous warning, and, he doesn't go anywhere because he's, quote, an old man. He's lived his whole life here, but... again, I like that guy's character. That was neat. It was nice to see how the Cyclops team was getting all their info while inside the colony.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious what would make someone living in a neutral colony switch over to Zeon. Like, he said he'd been there his whole life. He must have been very ride or die Space Noid independence. Yeah, to an extent, I think Alfred was also. His sketches were only of Zaku's. So there must be a level of Space Noid to Space Noid connection, right?
Yeah, there has to be at least some people who see things that way, especially in a neutral colony, right?
Yeah, but man, that guy's ready to go down.
He was. We also see Al get a little depressed. He verbalizes his trauma by asking Bernie when he brings him the upside down McDonald's, which maybe we'll call like the WickDonald's or something. But
yeah, Wonderland or whatever it's called.
He says, "It seems people die really easily, don't they, Bernie?" And Bernie tells him people die when their luck runs out, and that's it, not to worry about it. I thought that was interesting because that's a very simple way to look at it for Al, and Bernie's basically just putting the matter off and just trying not to deal with it, I feel like.
Probably. I mean, Bernie's been traumatized too, right? He was the fish out of water to begin with when he joined the squad as the Greenhorn, the rookie. He hasn't even killed one enemy mobile suit. Now he's like literally alone, So he must be a mix of fear and also resigned to his own fate of, he's going to die too. So he must feel like his luck ran out.
Yeah, it's very similar to what Shima said, remember? Life is like rolling the dice or something. It looks like I rolled a bad roll.
Wow. Yeah, it's a very fatalistic outlook for their situations. Yeah, just facing death. What'd you think of the arcade?
Oh, which part? Because he went to an arcade a few times. This is when...
After the whole battle and trauma, when he knows the nuke's on the way, and he has that horrifying nightmare vision of what the nuke would do to the colony.
Yeah, I thought that was a good way to, render it, especially back when this was made. Arcades that was a young person thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought it was pretty effective. I liked it. I don't know that, do kids even know what an arcade is today? Are there arcades anymore? If there are, there's not very many.
That's a good question. I don't think there's a ton. The only thing I can think of is like a Dave & Buster's kind of thing.
Yeah, and a lot of them have classic games, yeah, so.
Yeah, but it looked pretty cool.
I liked it. I thought it was effective.
Yeah, man, that security guard was really observant. Yeah, noticing one kid is like staring off into space and looked kind of scared or something.
Yeah, maybe he's really trained in mental health issues.
Yeah, he's probably like, all right, did someone mess with this kid or something? Like, should I call the police?
Yeah, poor Al. He's having a tough time.
Yeah.
This was a hard episode. Al has sort of a falling out with Bernie a little bit. Bernie tells him, that this badge they gave him was a wire and they've been listening to him and they're not really friends. And it's kind of odd that he doesn't just tell Kris what's happening, right? But he sort of says, what would you do if someone was coming to destroy the colony? And she tells him to fight, but not a right or wrong answer. And this is when Al finds out that the school had been bombed, Isaac.
Yeah.
And his friends are gathering up bullet shells, and they think it's cool. And Al no longer thinks it's cool because he saw the Cyclops team die, right in front of him. Again, piling on the trauma for old Al here.
Do you think he was crying because he thought his friends had died in the school, or just the gravity of everything, the Cyclops team and all that, and himself almost dying, kind of, and what's coming, the nuke?
I think he was crying because he thought maybe someone had died in the school, because he had just seen that kid die in that other building.
Right.
And then when he got there, didn't he ask him, like, where you guys been? I thought maybe... And they were like, oh, well, Al, the fighting happened at night. No one was at the school. And then he felt more relieved after that. So I do think maybe he was thinking that his friends had died too, which, I think it's a fair worry.
Yeah. He'd seen so much going on, and it's all been a rush over the last day. So good point. But speaking of the nuke, Von Helsing sounded pretty resistant to using the nuke.
He did, especially with a guy with a name Von Helsing.
Yeah.
I would think that guy's down to launch nukes all day, every day, but...
Do you think he really would have gone through with it, or do you think at the end... Do you think he might have allowed himself to get captured, right? Because we don't actually see his actual capture.
Oh, that's a good point. I hadn't thought about that.
That's the Von Helsing side story.
Yeah, that's actually really interesting, because before this, when Steiner is talking to the bar guy, they both make it clear that Zeon is not going to win the war.
Yeah.
And so I assume that sentiment is at least shared by other people of their status, which would include someone like Von Helsing. And so maybe you're right. Maybe he did let himself get captured, because if he knows he's going to lose, why is he just going to go kill a bunch of people?
Yeah, he is really against using the nuke. Once he's far away from Granada, who knows how events unfolded? But
yeah, because didn't they also say that they surrendered?
Yeah, that's what Alfred's dad said. He's like, oh, sorry we're late. There was a battle, and they blew up like one or two of the ships in Von Helsing's fleet, but they managed to capture his ship and then the nuke.
Yeah.
So how he knew they captured the nuke, I don't know. Maybe...
Well, they must have announced it, like, oh, we found nukes. They were planning to use them or something.
Yeah, maybe they told the captain, hold position. There's a battle happening.
Yeah.
And then, sorry, you can keep going. Then the captain probably asked, what's going on? I'm a passenger shuttle full of civilians. What's going on? They probably told him, like, yeah, it's your guys' lucky day. We stopped the Zeon fleet from taking a nuke to your colony.
Yeah, I like that headcanon. That makes sense to me. You're right. We didn't get any more detail on that. And if anyone out there knows definitively, like, is there no information, and is this a possibility? That'd be interesting to know.
Von Helsing on the list of good Zeon officers. Speaking of Von Helsing, what is your headcanon for the differences in accents across Zeon? Even the Federation, I guess. Like, do you have any policy for why Garcia sounds the way he does? Why Von Helsing? Why Misha?
You're right. The Cyclops team was very diverse. They would tick a lot of boxes in today's HR world, but I always attribute it to the fact that when people first moved to the colonies, it was always the poorest, right? And so poor is pretty universal. You can find poor people in every country. So
yeah, that's true.
I think maybe it's just the fact that, okay, there's a lot of people that were poor, and a lot of people moved to the colonies from a lot of different places, and maybe they didn't have a choice where they were going at first, and they all just kind of ended up, wherever it is they ended up. This one, I thought they just probably picked a Russian actor or a Russian accent because he had the nuke, right? So there's always that trope of, like, the Russians using the nukes.
He's German. That was a German accent, wasn't it?
Oh, really? I thought he sounded Russian, but... Well, whatever.
I mean, his name.
German, Russian, it's
all the same.
No, I mean the trope of using the nuke, if you're going to call back to your World War II, and, not that they use the nuke, but...
They definitely would have.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they started the project, right? So.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, this is 0079, so I imagine the language bonds and, the great-grandparents of everybody that went to the colonies and set up their little neighborhoods. It's probably much like here in the real world where, different parts of your state, your country have different regional accents. So why would it be any different in Side 3 or really any part of the colonies?
Yeah, like Little Russia and, Little Tokyo, yeah.
And Misha's from a Russian neighborhood or a colony where, that's just how they talk. Maybe they speak English and Russian, or, or their version of English is just so heavily accented, or same with Garcia and Von Helsing.
Yeah, I wonder if there's studies out there that figure out how long it takes for accents to go away.
Yeah, or new ones to form, who knows.
Right, yeah.
Did you feel bad for Alfred at the police station and how he inadvertently got himself into a boy who cried wolf situation?
It wasn't that I felt bad for him. It was more that I was like, oh, That's an effective use of the previous visit to like get us out of an easy way out of this. So overall, I thought this was written pretty well. So I didn't feel bad, but I definitely see how someone would feel bad. Yeah, I was more just impressed that they had written themselves out of using the cops at the end. So that was good.
Yeah. Why didn't he just run to the Federation, too?
Well, see, that was my question for you. So at the end of this episode, when Bernie's trying to leave, he's going to go to Francheska to go find a hot Francheska blonde woman who he sees on the wall. He sees this girl that he thinks is Kris at the bar, and it's not Kris, but he overhears her conversation with her boyfriend who left her, and he has flashes of the Cyclops team and Al, and he eventually reconsiders his departure and calls Al and says, I'm going to take down the Gundam. Was that enough for you? Because it would have been easier to just go to the Federation.
Yeah. No, that didn't really... I wouldn't say I didn't buy it, but it felt kind of forced to me that he would go there, think he sees Christina, and then overhears a fragment of what must have been a very long argument.
Yeah.
And decides, you know what, I'm not going to run. I'm not going to quit like this, this poor young woman. I'm going to go back and take care of my business. I'm not going to run away from my problems. I agree with you, Brian. This really could have been solved by just going to the Federation and saying, look, I'm the pilot of that Zaku. This little boy was helping me. You have to do something because there's a nuclear warhead on the way.
Right. I played that out in my mind, like what would happen. Obviously, they wouldn't let him go, right? He would end up in prison. But then you don't have a final act if you do that, right? You don't have a climactic battle.
Unless it's the Alex going out in space to fight off the nuke.
Oh, but that could be good, too.
But that takes away, like, the heaviness of the ending that we actually got.
Right. So I'm imagining, though, Isaac, that when they started this show, they knew what the ending was that they wanted, and they had to write to that ending.
Right, yeah.
Like we always talk about, did the show stick the ending? Well, this one really stuck the ending, and you can tell that was the ending that they were writing toward from the beginning.
Yeah, stuck in your heart.
So I feel like this is maybe where they just got stuck a little bit, and they had to be like, we have to give some justification for why Bernie just doesn't go to the Federation. And that was it. So whether it works for you or not, I don't know. For me, I'm a little flimsy on it. I'd have to maybe watch it again. So anyway, if he does go to the Federation, I thought, okay, well, they're clearly going to throw him in prison. They might actually kill him. And then I thought that might actually be an even sadder ending for Al.
Yeah.
If Bernie turned everything in, went to the Federation, and then Al watched the Federation kill him anyway, right? They might just execute him.
I would hope the Federation wouldn't kill him since he saved a colony and revealed, who knows how much information that was valuable, especially to saving everyone from the nuke. But another thing we're forgetting is that he wants to fight the Gundam because the Gundam killed one of his squad mates and arguably is the reason they all died. So I can understand on that level. He had second thoughts at leaving, and then he said, you know what, that Gundam has to go down. That bastard in that cockpit who butchered everyone on my squad. I'm going to die trying.
See, that's what I thought too, but then at the end he sends that video to Al. And in it, he says, it's not like I hate the Federation. It's not like I want to avenge the Cyclops team or anything. I just don't want to run away. And so, I don't know. I mean, do you believe him? There has to be some level of vengefulness there, I would think. But he says no, so I don't know.
In that case, I'd believe his death video. And for whatever reason, that conversation in the spaceport bar convinced him, don't run away. Just deal with your business. Where are you going to go anyways? You're going to be sent to a Baoku or something if you go back to Zeon, unless you wait out the war in, what was it called? Not Felicia.
Francheska. Yeah. Home of the hot blondes, Francheska.
He needs a Francheska side story.
Yeah, in an alternate universe, Bernie makes it to Francheska, and
and Christina chases after him.
Yeah. I mean, maybe a better solution would have been maybe he tries to go to the Federation and gets denied for some reason. Then this is his only option.
That would have. Yeah.
I think you're out of time though. I don't know where you'd squeeze that in here.
Yeah, a cut scene of him and Alfred trying to get to the Federation at the gate, and they're just waved away as you guys are crazy. Get the hell out of here.
Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah.
So this is going to be something where, listeners, I'm going to interpret it as, like, the rest of this was pretty tightly written. So I'm just going to assume that this is one of those parts where they had to Band-Aid over because they were just out of time. Sometimes you just have to work within the constraints that you're giving. And, given in this, you got 6 episodes, and each episode was only, 25 minutes, right? 25
right.
minutes. So if you know what has to go in the last episode and you've got 2 minutes to tell your story, then that was the bar conversation we got. So I'm sure they considered other options, but that's what we ended up with. So if I had to call out another negative of the show, it would be that one.
Yeah. What did you is your reasoning for why Bernie sent Alfred to go do all the shopping at the hardware stores that he just didn't want to risk exposing himself? Or do you think like the Federation was actually monitoring hardware stores?
I'm sure that was a concern, but I think the main thing was that he had to fix the Zaku while Al was getting more stuff. So maybe it was just a time thing, because they only had, 2 days at this point to defeat the Gundam, I think?
Yeah.
So I think it was a time thing. They were just splitting up duties here. Plus, Al can't work on a mobile suit. So if Al can do anything, he can go shopping. That was how I took it. But they're probably looking for Bernie. They were looking for someone, right? Didn't they think that someone survived?
Yeah, I think they did. But okay, that makes sense. What did you think about the final battle between the Zaku Kai and the Gundam Alex?
I liked it. I thought it was good. I thought it was well thought out, right? They didn't just rush at each other and do a few slices or something like that. I mean, there was a strategy there. Bernie knew that he was in a Zaku going into Gundam, so he had to plan it out. He had the decoy balloons. That was a good idea. He had the smoke, which was a good idea. He really worked with what he had, Isaac. He only had 1 Hygogg and 12 grenades. That's not a lot to take out a Gundam.
No.
He's not working with any ranged weapons. Poor guy. I mean, he got really far for what he had, I think. He sliced open the cockpit, Isaac, which was pretty impressive.
Yes, or something happened inside where she took damage, like a shrapnel or something. Yeah.
I mean, he got hit in the head by either shrapnel or a round. So he wasn't doing too well by the end either. I don't know. Do you think he would have made it anyway?
It was so close, and it really came down to that last moment. I believe that the Zaku, all things considered, it punched above its own weight and did excellent damage to the Alex.
Yeah.
Far more than you think a Zaku would be able to do. I can only imagine the hands of a better pilot what would have happened. But it came down to that final attack for both of them.
This is also something that I've seen people debate a lot. Given what happened in the last battle, right? I mean, objectively, what happened? A Zaku heavily damaged a Gundam. Does that mean that Christina was a bad pilot? Does that mean Bernie was a good pilot? Were they both bad pilots? Or were they just sort of not victims of circumstance, but they were both just in a weird situation, right? Bernie was maybe not a great pilot because he was still a rookie, but he definitely knew what he was going up against and relied on sort of guerrilla tactics. And it doesn't necessarily mean she was a bad pilot, but she was definitely not experienced in real combat. But she was also using a Gundam that wasn't meant for her, and it was way faster than it probably should have been for her. I don't know. What's your take on that?
I'd say that this is a result of multiple reasons all coming together. We have the Zaku Kai, which was engineered to be so much more superior to the regular Zaku, and we see that in its performance. We have the Alex, which was very powerful on its own right, even though a prototype. We have Christina, who has no combat experience other than the night before, and now she has to fight a Zaku again.
Yep.
Well, not necessarily again, but she has to fight again, but this time against a Zaku that pretty much has the drop on her and ambushes her with all kinds of tricks, smoke and, inflatable balloons. And then we have Bernie, who we know is concussed and is only using a Hygogg, essentially. Some grenades, but mainly the Hygogg. So all that combined, along with, randomness and chaos, gets us that very close, almost a draw fight.
I think it's more than a draw. I think it's a win for the Zaku, even though the pilot is... Well, Isaac, that one line was rough. I mean, at the end, Al overhears them say, "There's nothing left of the Zeon pilot. He's a pile of hamburger."
That made me immediately write down that we need Bernie's Burger at Gundamland. And you know what it has, Brian? It's got a pink hot center, and it's got a green bun.
Perfectly medium rare. Oh, man.
Exactly.
Yeah, and you put a nice big chunk of tomato on one side, so the whole thing looks like a mono-eye.
Oh, there you go, yeah. Or, cherry tomato, right?
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, okay. Yeah. That's morbid, but that just, killed Al, right? I mean, he was just sitting there.
Right.
Poor guy.
Speaking of morbid, though, this is when they show us Bernie's death video.
Mm-hmm.
I was watching that and I couldn't help but think that, I can imagine an older Alfred rewatching this video so many times as he ages.
Yep.
It's just so tragic.
Yeah, so speaking of older Alfred, I had 2 or 3 questions here at the end of what happens to Christina and what happens to Alfred? Do we know? I wasn't able to find out that much, but here's what I did find. So in terms of Christina, 2 things. One, there's a prequel manga right now that's ongoing. However, it's on hiatus because I think the author is having some health issues.
Uh-oh.
There is more to find out about Kris's pre-story, but that doesn't answer my question of what happened to her after. So I didn't know that. It's a very new manga. I think it just started last year. But in terms of what happens to her afterwards, apparently there's some sort of audio drama where she writes another message to Al. She mentions maybe leaving the military, and she's excited to come back and visit Al and would like to see Bernie again, and that she would like to travel to new places with them. But that's about it. It kind of ends there. We don't know. Like, I was just wondering, like, is she in a Jagan in Charge Counterattack or something? So, no. Some people think there's a scene in 0083 in Anaheim Electronics where there's a redheaded girl that's, like, very prominent in the shot, and a lot of people think that that's Kris, or it's meant to be Kris, but it's not. The 0083 staff have said in some, I forget what it was, if it was like a behind the scenes or interview or something, that it was just coincidental and it's not her, even though they did admit that it looks very much like her.
It's another redhead.
Yeah, that's not Kris. There's more than one redheaded girl in
in the Earth sphere.
Yeah. They are quite common. So that is not her in 0083. So we don't really know too much about Kris other than that she probably left the military at some stage. As far as Al, there's nothing on Al to my knowledge other than, so I did watch this on my Blu-ray, Isaac, and I did check the extra features. And one of the extra features was the Japanese Blu-ray promos. So basically, the first time when they were making a Blu-ray for the show, they put together some little hype videos, little trailers, whatever. I think 2 out of the 3 are narrated by an older Alfred.
Wow.
Reflecting on the story. And in one of them, he says, I could never tell anyone what happened that winter of 0079. And in the other one, he says, it was a Christmas story I would never forget. Beyond that, though, I don't know what happened to Alfred. It doesn't seem like he went on to join the military. I don't know why he would after witnessing this. I mean, I could see him joining, like, the Hygogg or something, but...
Yeah, I don't even know if I could see him joining Hygogg. Like, I wrote down that Alfred must have had at least some issues growing up.
a little bit, you think?
Yeah. Like, just walking in his colony, he must have felt so much sadness and reminiscing about stuff that just happened, over those few days.
Right.
At the end, it's very fitting that Alfred is the only one who grasped the principal's speech. All his friends and other classmates, they all, they're like picking their nose or their ears. They just wanted to be over because it's just some adult giving a nonsense speech. But Alfred really looked like he understood what the principal was saying about how horrible the war has been, how many people have died, and how he hopes that, their generation will grow up and create lasting peace. That
last scene was pretty chilling for Al. Yeah. I mean, it didn't really leave you feeling great. I mean,
right.
He's crying at the speech, and what do his friends say? They actually try to console him, don't they? Saying, don't worry, Al, a new war will start soon. And when it does, we can find even better paraphernalia, essentially. Maybe even live rounds, and maybe even a soldier will let us use his gun or something like that. Like, they're just totally...
innocently oblivious.
Yeah, they're still at the naive 11-year-old stage, and now Alfred is at the soldier level of, like, I just watched all of my soldier friends die within the span of, like, 3 days.
Did you notice that Ponytails was there again, and she was the one that actually realized he needed help and went to go get a teacher?
Yes.
Another testament to her character.
Yeah.
She was kind of like the embodiment of rigid morality, I guess,
Yeah, she was like the class mom, like she was keeping everyone in line. Maybe, hopefully Alfred, like, grew up and married this girl or something, but I don't know.
I was wondering if he told the teacher when she came to him what happened, but I guess not, based on what you said about an older him saying that he never told anybody.
I mean, would they believe him?
I think depending on stuff he starts revealing, if like a Federation officer was in the same room, or, maybe they did have a Federation officer come, or detective, stuff might have started lining up where they would have eventually had to start believing him.
Yeah, it could be.
Yeah. I wrote down that I didn't care much for the ending, but then it kind of stewed with me more. I thought maybe like a funeral, like Bernie's funeral, would have been better. Like if he was just buried in some, not like a pauper's grave, but like whatever civic discount grave they would put him in. Or if his remains would be returned to Zeon or something.
Yeah.
But in retrospect, Alfred crying might have been the most powerful way to end the series.
I think so. I think that's what they wanted out of this show, and I think they got it.
You don't end this series like almost every other Gundam series where, the forces of evil were defeated and people are cheering, and, the Gundam pilot had this really cool epic battle. Instead, it's just trauma and sadness and loss.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about our 3 pre-Zeta side stories, I'd say 8th MS team definitely has the most optimistic ending, right?
Yeah.
People take some damage, but everyone's, for the most part, alive, and they're okay.
They lived happily ever after.
Double 83 is slightly less happy, right? I mean, Synapse is dead, Burning's dead, the colony fell, everyone failed, Titans are in charge. Not the happy ending. But then you go here, and you're just like, well, I'm bawling my eyes out over here. You know? Exactly,
yeah. It felt like the closing images, which are in color in the final episode, that go along with the credits. They're very much slice of life photos, just like this whole series was really just a slice of one boy's life.
Yeah.
So I really like the closing images because they each speak volumes. We see like a few people kind of huddled with like their belongings and luggage next to a wall covered in bullet holes.
Mm-hmm.
We see some people or some kids using a like a destroyed Zaku as like pretty much a platform to go swimming on. We see Federation infantry charging a Zaku. You know, we know how that would end.
Yeah, not well.
This is the most sobering Gundam series, I think, for the 1 year war.
Yeah, I think the last image in that set is Alfred and his class holding a sign that says Happy New Year. And you have to wonder, like, is Al having a Happy New Year? Like, I don't think he is.
No. He at least put on a fake smile for it. So
I think
that would give us some hope, I think, that he's, you know, who knows if he's getting therapy or not. His parents seemed to start picking up that something was wrong.
Yeah, but what a kid, though, at the end when he kept it together and told Kris that Bernie would be sad that he missed her.
Yeah, Alfred, despite his grades, has like a type of emotional intelligence on, you know, what not to reveal and what to reveal at certain situations.
Yeah.
But, oh boy, a great series, very tragic. You need to be in the mood, prepare yourself to watch it.
Yeah. I think the last thing I wanted to talk about, Isaac, was the mecha designs. The mechanical designer for this show is Yutaka Izubuchi. He's the same person who did the mechanical designs for Char's Counterattack. And I think from top to bottom, this show has fantastic designs, Isaac. I liked
absolutely
pretty much everything we saw here.
So detailed, so flowing correctly in their movement. They were just very beautifully designed, and models lifted just from these designs would be incredible.
Yeah, and that's actually one of my complaints, is that some of these designs don't have master grades. And I'm picking on master grades here, listeners, because in the 144 scale high grade, you can pretty much find all these. I mean, you can pretty much find any suit you want in 144 scale.
Yeah.
But in master grade scale, 1 by 100, so we got two of the Alex. There was one from 1999, and then there was one from, I think, 2 or 3 years ago, 2019. There's version 2. So you're covered there. But that makes sense. It's a main Gundam. All the gyms that we saw here, they do have master grades as well. There's one for the Cold District type, the Command, the Space Command, and the Sniper 2. Two of those, though, I think the Cold District and the Space type are premium Bandai releases, which I think is weird. If anything, I feel like people would want the Space type one, the red and white one, Isaac, over the Colony type one, which is like pink.
Maybe it's a Japanese thing, you know, because like pink is, I think, favored much more strongly over there because of, well, don't quote me on this, but something to do with like cherry blossoms and like samurai youth or something like that.
Okay,
like its connotations, from what I vaguely understand, it was almost like a bravery color, you know, something like that. So it's why pink appears kind of more often than not for a lot of aces sometimes.
Okay,
yeah.
You know, I like some of those gyms. I don't know if I want to pay premium Bandai prices for gyms though, Isaac.
No, never.
But we'll see. I'll have to check eBay for some of those. The mass-produced gun cannon, there's no MG for that, which is kind of not surprising. But I'm more upset about the Zeon side, Isaac, because there's no master grade Hygogg.
I'm not surprised.
There's no master grade Gelgoog Jaeger.
Not surprised.
There's an old master grade for the Kempfer, which I own.
Yeah.
That's from 2001, though, so it's pretty old. I'm surprised they haven't made a new one. And the Zaku Kai doesn't have a master grade. It has a Reborn 100, which is fine. Actually, even though you don't like that one, Isaac, I just ordered it because it was on sale for like $36.
That's a steal, yeah.
At one of the toy stores I usually shop at, Big Bad Toy Store. I don't know that they're actually going to deliver it. It still hasn't come in, but for $36, I figured, hey, that's pretty cool. But... So on the Zaku Kai, Isaac, did you know that there's another version of it that has a different helmet? Because I know you hate the helmet.
Yeah, actually, there's the there's a regular helmet, which is kind of Zaku head, you know, regular dome, and then there's the Fritz helm.
Yeah,
I think that's kind of more shall we say, Germanic.
Yes. Do you like it more with the Fritz helm? Is it acceptable with the Fritz helm, or does that not help it?
It helps it more because of how differentiated it looks, but there's a sliding scale of, I think, Zeon becoming too Germanic.
Yeah.
And you kind of see that in Unicorn, where they had that one, I forgot the lieutenant's name or whatever, but it was like World War I gas mask mobile suit. And like each time I saw that, I was like, okay, this is too much.
Yeah.
This is like approaching Jinro levels of like German paraphernalia. Like we don't need to go to this extreme. It kind of looks okay, kind of on the way to a Gyaradoga, but also kind of bizarre looking also. So overall, I'm still not a big Kai fan, but I guess it's okay. It's different. I'll give it that.
It does use your favorite machine gun, though, which we mentioned.
Right. What was it, the 90 millimeter, the 80 millimeter, something like that? MM80?
Yeah, that sounds right.
Okay, yeah, which is such a much more cool and efficient looking type of machine gun for the Zaku's. Like, it looks like they could be dual wielded. Like, that'd be cool.
There you go, yeah.
That's what I would do, but...
Okay, so the Fritz helm helps a little bit. But did you notice that, though, there is an alternate color scheme from another manga, which we plan to read at some point here.
Yeah.
Called The Plot to Assassinate Giranzabi, that has the white and the blue. Now that looks cool, Isaac. I think I might paint mine to look like that.
Yeah, right. These are the ones that protect the capital, I believe. I assume Zum City, or at least the maybe not the city itself, but like the whole colony or the group of colonies at least. But yeah, I think these look pretty cool. See, this is another thing, right? Like, this fleshes out the lore more. What color would Zeon pick for their like elite Royal Guard unit? And this is it. It's the white and the blue. I think they look pretty cool though with this helmet. It looks a little bit even different than the Fritz helm, because this one kind of has like it's got an antenna, a sun visor. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, the sun visor right above the mono eye. But yeah, this one does have like a captain's or a commander's antenna.
Yeah, I think the antenna would help in general, even on the normal dome one.
Yeah, but this design looks great. I'd love to see it. That gun is not an MM80. That is something far more beastly, designed to protect bigger, the zombies.
Yeah, sized up a little bit, I think. We also saw a redesigned Zygok called a Zygok E. No master grade on that, which is not surprising. But I do think it's surprising there's no master grade Hygogg. I feel like everyone loves that suit.
True, but like the Comfer itself, like, see, the Comfer was almost the focus of, multiple episodes, assembling it and getting it ready, seeing it in combat, smuggling it. We really only get a few minutes less of GOG action.
Yeah, that's true. All right.
I mean, they're beautiful. They're great looking Hygoggs, but there's also might be an engineering problem with that, as far as how do we do those spindly arms which extend and contract,
Yeah, I think they could do it today. Yeah, maybe back in the day, though, it could have been difficult.
I could see how it's not high on their list.
Yeah. Beyond suits, though, Isaac, I think something that maybe is overlooked on this show is the ship's designs, which were also done, as far as I'm aware, by Izubuchi. First of all, the Gray Phantom, fantastic update of the white base.
Beautiful-ish,
design, the Pegasus class design. Again, I think we've discussed this before, but if they do put a Pegasus class in the live action film, I bet it's going to look a lot more like the Gray Phantom than the white base.
I wouldn't be so sure, but I wouldn't be surprised, because the Gray Phantom's such a beautiful looking design. We didn't see it fire a shot, but no. It looks great. I wonder what their plan was if the Alex goes down. Do we?
They fly away.
do we? Yeah, do we have the Gray Phantom just start shooting at that part of the colony, or like what do we do? No,
I would lose. It has no more mobile suits. It's complete failure on there. Did you notice the captain when the guy told him the Scarlet Team was destroyed? He had like no real reaction.
Was it the Gray the commander of the base that had like a beret and like a wooden stick, a baton?
I feel like it was him. Yeah, but I could be wrong. Okay. Yeah, I don't know.
I could have sworn that guy was the base commander, but like the captain of the actual Gray Phantom, like we almost saw nothing of him.
Yeah, well, we didn't see much of his mobile suits either, so clearly his tone at the top, filtered down to the staff.
He just went to his quarters after combat and just stayed there until the situation was over.
And then on the Zeon side, did you see they redesigned the Musai? It's called the Musai Final Production Type. I love that one. Yeah. It's very pointy. I think it's a lot more menacing than the original design.
Yeah, that and the chevet that Von Helsing was in. It was much more, not necessarily sinister looking, but like you said, much more pointy and angular. They really kind of lengthened the design in a way.
Yeah, it looks way better. I see it's referred to as the Tive class, which is an upgraded chevet. I wonder if it's either or, if it actually is the Tive, or I don't know. But yeah, I agree. That one's way better too than the normal chevet. What I think is amazing about these designs, Isaac, is these designs look good today, and they were made in 1989.
Yeah, there's just a level of like just how technical they look. That's about the only word I could say. Just so well thought out, practical and realistic, really.
Yeah, these are fantastic updates of the original show, and not to say that the original show is bad, but if you're telling me we went from the original show to these in 10 years, and now we're 30 years later and they still look good, that's really impressive to me. So hats off to you. Yeah, Mr. Izubuchi. I think you might be, like, for example, Isaac, he also designed the new Gundam. So
oh wow,
he might be my favorite designer, even though Katoki does great work. This guy, you tell me he did the new Gundam, the Gym Sniper 2, the Alex, all these gyms, the Gelgoog Jaeger, the campfire. I mean, come on, that's some impressive work there.
Yeah, pretty great looking designs, and I wish there were kind of models of the ships, but I'll have to dream. Speaking of designs, did you notice that the guns, like the toy guns his friends were playing with, were like hyper realistic looking?
I did, and some of them were also really big. There was one that he had in his room. Did you notice that one? It was like a two-handed, not a bazooka, but it was just this enormous gun.
No.
If I think back, Isaac, I mean, that was kind of not uncommon back then. I do feel like there were toys that you could buy that were really big guns.
There was a point I remember where like the orange tips came about, Before then it was just toy guns, know. And then something happened and orange tips had to be mandatory on any toy gun, really.
Maybe the laws are looser in the colonies, I think.
Speaking of loose, something I noticed kind of similar to The Witch from Mercury prologue was that very much like how The Witch from Mercury relied on infiltrating a base and then, using an explosive, or at least an explosive could have been used for all purposes. The same thing could have happened here. Like the Cyclops team could have just smuggled in a nuke and then taken out the colony. There wasn't necessarily the need for the campfire and all that. This could have all just been brutally solved in the same way.
Yeah, that's fair. Well, maybe they weren't ready to use the nuke at that point, but you're right. Maybe they should have sent him in with the nuke as a backup plan and they detonated if they fail.
Right.
It's amazing how many things are solved by nuclear weapons, I think.
Exactly. Or just smuggling them in and just, we'll just do it. We'll just take them out.
Oh, God, nuclear weapons are terrible. I hope one never goes off again, for the record. But.
Yeah, me too. Do you feel like the Cyclops team, would their problems have been less if they killed Alfred for finding out about them? Or...
I don't think so. He led him to the Alex pretty quickly.
Yeah, now that I think about it, a lot of his intel he gathered really worked in their favor with the camera and all that,
Yeah. I think they needed a better explosive delivery system than what they had. I think that's what got them in trouble. They were in the room, but they couldn't get the mines on the Gundam, and it was wearing the Chobham armor anyway. If the Comforter's mine didn't do it, their little explosives weren't going to do it either. So, yeah, maybe they needed to bring in a tactical nuke with them, just to get the job done. I don't know.
It seemed like it wasn't even an option for them to consider killing him. It seemed like, okay, this is a kid. Let's kind of figure out what he knows, and somehow we'll use this to our advantage.
Right, and I think that goes back to what we said before about how generally the Zeon people, while they may be space fascists who've done some terrible things, the ones that are named and that we see often behave fairly nobly. Now, granted, they sniped that guy in the head next to Bernie, but he was an enemy combatant. They don't do that to the kid. It'd be interesting if they tried to kill Al. I mean, I'm sure Bernie would have a thing or two to say about it, but...
Yeah. Speaking of things we noticed about Zeon, Garcia broke the whole pattern that we've seen of Zeon not hitting Zeon, because
you're right.
He gave Bernie a heck of a punch. He put himself in the Sasero category.
Got Saseroed.
Yeah, but I noticed later on Garcia asking Bernie not to die. That seemed like it was the extent of Garcia being able to apologize.
Oh, that was definitely his apology for sure.
Yeah. I felt like Alfred's sketchbook like if that got into Federation hands, everything would have been over because it had like a picture of every one of the Cyclops team.
that would have been what they showed on the news. Like, have you seen this man?
Yeah, exactly. Just a child's picture. For the life of me, I can't think of anyone in any Gundam series that smokes as much as the captain.
Yeah, that's a good question. I wonder if that's just because smoking in kids' media became taboo in like the mid-90s. Like that's when they made Wolverine stop smoking. I wonder if that carries over to here. Probably not, but you know, he vapes. I feel like there's not a lot of smokers in the Tomino series, right?
No, pretty rare, but this might have been the final one, so that's why they made him pound down a pack a day.
I feel like Dogady would smoke just so he could use up more oxygen and his followers couldn't have it.
That's a very Dogady thing to do. Yeah, I agree. This professor, this scientist in the wheelchair, that wheelchair was bulkier than like Professor X's wheelchair. Like it looked so big it would have trouble navigating like a standard doorway.
Yeah.
You know, it was kind of an eyesore to me. I wonder why they went with that design.
Now that you bring that up, it was very big. I wonder if maybe the intent was like, again, this is them trying to be futurist, right? So maybe they were thinking that wheelchairs in the future would do a lot more things and therefore they would be a lot bigger. But
his didn't do anything.
You're right. We never saw it do anything, right? So yeah, you're right. I maybe he's got a mini fridge in it, you know? And
right. We didn't watch it ascend a flight of stairs, so they deleted that scene. The Federation base officer with the beret and his wooden baton, he clearly went to like the bad academy for Federation officers, right? Because didn't he specifically tell the colony leadership that only after their military went out to fight the Confer would the Federation send in their military?
He did, yeah. He was clearly designed for you to hate him because he had a very punchable face and just not a good attitude on that guy.
When the Confer was attacking and not yet at the base where the Alex was at, they kind of cut to the Alex and it's laying on its, kind of transport bed. Was the Federation getting ready to move the Alex, or was it just, were they somewhat, oblivious and, the Confer will be dealt with, or, we don't have anything to worry about. They're sending out the Scarlet team.
Don't worry, the Scarlet team is here.
Yeah. Nobody was rushing in the hangar. Did you notice that? They're just kind of standing around looking at the Alex.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, I assume at some point they need Kris to get up and move it around. Maybe they were prepping just to have it walk around, but they can't really have it walk around in there. Where would you even take it to test it outside?
Maybe they were going to get it on the Gray Phantom and get it out of the colony?
Yeah, that kind of makes sense. Okay.
Speaking of, the Gray Phantom, it seems like the base commander wearing the beret, he told the colony leadership, you use your mobile suits first and then the Federation will attack once your guys are destroyed. It seemed like the Gray Phantom captain kind of either wasn't aware of that or he disregarded it because, the next scene is him just sending out the Scarlet Squadron.
Yeah, I interpreted that to mean that whatever those little suits were, exosuits, or they have a name, I forget what it is, but I took it to mean that those were soundly defeated, like immediately. Yeah.
God, they were like miniature mobile suits, but not in a good way. They were, I wouldn't even know what to call those.
Yeah.
They look kind of like pat labor kind of thing.
Yeah, they were not good. They were not meant for defense, right? They were clearly meant for something else.
Yeah.
They reminds me of the little thing that like Benager piloted in Unicorn when he rescued Minerva in the beginning. Yeah, the little orange kind of construction. Yeah, they remind me of those the ride armors from Mega Man X. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh yeah, it's got like a bubble cockpit kind of thing.
You just hop in and you get little spiky hands, but
exposed cockpit like the Rafflesia.
Yeah.
Man, yeah, this was such a great series. It's just, I don't know. I wish Alfred told somebody what happened. I wish he, maybe not that teacher, although she might have been a good bet to tell, but if what you said was canon, then that's even more tragic that he really never had anyone to talk about this whole tragedy he lived through. I would hope that at some point he could maybe even tell Christina. Yeah, that could be rough though. Then he's telling her that she killed Bernie. Well, oh God, that's even worse too. Yeah, he really can't tell Christina. Because that's the other tragedy here, right? Like, there's one tragedy, which is the Bernie died and the traumatization of Al, I'll say. But the other tragedy is that, like, clearly we are led to believe that Kris and Bernie would make a nice couple, and they seemed both to be very respectful of each other, and then there was no chance of that ever happening. So They even had a funny story to tell people, right? About, I thought he was a peeping Tom, so I attacked him with a baseball bat.
Right, yeah, exactly. And then, like, there was that shot towards the end when Bernie leaves, where Kris's parents look outside, and they clearly like Bernie. Like, I feel like you were meant to infer that her parents approve of Bernie and really hope that that he asks Kris out one day.
Yeah, I mean, he probably sticks out different than, a lot of people in a neutral colony. So he was, I guess, noticeable as far as gentlemen callers who've come to her house, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe they're also excited on another level because, she's always working. She's always doing whatever simulation stuff she's doing for the Federation. Now that this guy's here, like, and they're getting along, like, wow,
Yeah, absolutely. So, all right, Isaac, how many Haros would you give this show?
I would give this show 5 out of 5 Haros. It's just so well done. I don't even want to say it's short and sweet. It's short and not even bittersweet. Short and sad, but a very beautifully done story and very powerful.
Yeah, I think I would agree. I think I would give it a 9.5 out of 10 Haros. So this is it's up there, everyone, of I think one of the better series. Even though it's very short, it has something to say, and it says it, and then it leaves.
Yeah. Mandatory viewing for Gundam fans.
Yeah, I think it has a little bit of everything, right? It's got a good story. It's very sad, but it's also got a lot of lore in it, even though it doesn't directly affect the war. You get to find out about the Alex, and everyone after they saw this, Isaac, everyone always asked. I mean, we did a whole episode on it, like, what would happen if Amuro had the Alex, right?
Yeah.
No Zeon would be left alive.
Apparently not, no.
Great mecha designs. It's not every day you get a good story and mecha designs that you love, right? So.
Right, and one thing they didn't show, I guess for time reasons and just pacing, is what happened to Killing. What happened to Commander Killing, Granada, who was, in a way, behind the whole thing.
Yeah.
According to what I read, he, took a pistol and put it to his head.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Interesting end for the guy. He was the one that wanted to use a nuke, right?
Yeah, I think when he found out Giran died, he did that, or when the war was lost. Which I assume was the easy way out, because the Federation knew that a nuke was on the way. So then the question was, who's behind this?
Yeah, once they connected to him, all that's over. So interesting change in confidence for the man who wanted to use the nuke.
Yeah, there was an execution waiting for him, regardless of what happened. I mean, unless he got to Axis or whatever, but we have no idea how he'd be treated there if Axis leadership found out that he was trying to use a nuclear weapon on a neutral colony.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of bombs, last funny tidbit I will leave you with. If you go on the wiki, there's a screenshot of the Hygogg firing the rocket.
Yeah.
And on the rocket is written the message, "Receive my love."
Was this Strauss's rocket or Steiner's?
I don't know. I'm not sure.
Oh, okay.
I assume they all have, funny phrases written on them, but...
Yeah, those rockets were pretty cool. What a cool little attachment that's like very Hygogg specific, We never see that anywhere else.
Yeah, it's kind of like the amphibious equivalent of a Sturmfaust or whatever.
Yeah, the Panzerfaust thing, yeah. Good point, yeah.
Well, alrighty, listeners, if you've got any comments, thoughts on 0080 War in the Pocket, we'd love to hear them. I think maybe our biggest criticism of the show, Isaac, seems to be Bernie's ultimate reasoning for fighting rather than going to the Federation. So what's your take on that? Do you love the mecha designs? Anything about 0080, love to hear about it.
Definitely tell us what you felt after watching it. It's emotional tone-wise, it might be in its own category in Gundam.
Oh, and then the last thing, Isaac, is Merry Christmas, listeners. This was the Christmas show. Let us hope that the nuke doesn't go off tonight on Christmas night, and to all a good night.
There's a lump of coal in our hearts. The most horrifying part of his nuke vision was when he was imagining his classroom.
Oh, right? Yeah, he watched his classmates get incinerated. That was horrible.
They all kind of huddled, and then I think the teacher tried to run over to the students, and then by that point, the blast reaches them.
Yeah, oof.
It was like the Terminator 2 nuke dream. That, but in a child's mind.
Ay.
Yeah. And on that, we end it.
All right, everybody. Don't forget, before you go to sleep tonight, stand next to your bed, salute that framed picture of Amuro Ray, the greatest of all time, and recite our Federation pledge. Into the night, Captain Bright, Lundo Bell, Zeon fell. Liberty and justice, Amuro trust us. You said your farewell, now we'll give 'em hell. Good night, everybody.
Merry Christmas, everybody, and have a nuclear New Year.